I've noticed a couple of common mistakes in people who've been playing career mode over the past year. I see the same things in dozens of the saves that I rate for my rating save series, but also the exact same things in posts on Reddit and of course other people's videos on YouTube. Seeing the same mistakes being made over and over has made me decide to make a video about some of the less known parts of the games that can really impact how much fun you have. I don't think I need any more introduction to this video than that, so let's start off with the first one straight away, and I think the most obvious one is the total lack of experience in people's teams. I made a video back on FIFA 22 saying how you can win any single trophy on the game with 18-year-old players, and while this is true, you might not realise it, but experience is actually really important in career mode. You might be wondering, why should I have players past the age of 25 in my team? Well, the most obvious reason is that Youth Academy players rarely have over 70 composure, which affects how a player will perform in big matches. Higher composure means less mistakes, and stats will be lowered by a smaller amount when you're in a title battle, when you're in a cup final, or you're in an important relegation scrap match. As composure actually doesn't impact the overall rating, it doesn't matter whether a player's 1 or 99, they'll be rated the exact same. It always makes sense to target players who are good in this area. To be honest, as this is actually a really important stat for every single position on your team, the fact that it doesn't cost any overall doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but you should exploit that in every single save. I've seen so many people ask, why am I losing cup finals? Why is the Champions League so hard? You look at their squad, you'll see that they have Savinho, Maxi Bayer and Jeremy Doku up front, and all of these guys have less than 75 composure. It's not only composure that experience translates to, there's actually 5 mentality stats: aggression, interceptions, positioning, vision and composure. This is basically a player's personality, how often they're in the right position, and how often they know what to do when they have the ball. I would really recommend having at least 3 players with high composure, positioning and vision in your team, because it'll make every single one of these massive matches way easier for you to play. Of course, if the difference between 2 players is massive, then absolutely go for the better player. Jack Grealish and Jeremy Doku are both left wingers at City. Grealish has 78 composure and Doku has 75. This might be a tiny difference if you're in a penalty shootout, but if you're just playing the matches, then every single person will prefer using Doku, as you probably should. While we're on the topic of young players, I do think people struggle to understand exactly how squad importance works. If you've got a young player who's a sporadic first team player, they'll actually develop slower than a future prospect if you're not playing either of them. This is because squad role is about 25% of how morale is calculated, which is then used to either speed up or slow down the player's development plan. Having the right player on the right squad role is actually really important. Similarly, if a player isn't happy with the money that they're earning, they'll also slow down in development. Contracts are a super underrated part of career mode, but especially a super underrated part of youth development. If you get contracts right, you can move a player from being unhappy and developing at about 2 overall every single season to being delighted and improving at over 5. Another mistake that I see a lot is people restarting their career modes because they want to move down the pyramid rather than up it. Maybe you're at an elite club like Juventus and just want to manage as Palermo, but you're not getting the right job offers. Well, you can also use contracts as a super handy way to move clubs down a division. Just offer a player a £1 release clause. If the player accepts the contract, you'll be fired, and the next set of jobs will be at clubs worse than the one you currently manage. Another really common mistake that makes the game so boring is someone who has a team with 10 players who are rated about 70, and then they'll sign one guy who's rated 95. You used to see it a lot with Benzema's Regen when he would appear in the free agents, but you'll see this team blasting through League 2. They'll show screenshots of how many League 1 goals they've scored, they'll reach the championship and win the playoffs, and complain about how easy the game is during the entire 3 seasons that they have fun with. As soon as they reach the Premier League, they realise all of a sudden these are the teams that are just as good as me, they start losing and get bored of the game. Focusing all of your time on one player is not only a little bit unrealistic, but also just generally makes the game less fun anyway. I did similar things when I was younger. I would sign players like McManaman or Rooney or Tevez while playing in the Championship, and it was really fun for a few games. Having a player who's so much better than the rest is cool at the start, but gets old really quickly. Even though career mode isn't designed for this, I think playing as realistically as FIFA allows is probably the best way to play the game, even if you allow yourself to be unrealistic at times. Maybe you can find a way to justify Pau Kubasi joining Mansfield or Omar Marmoush joining Palermo, but try and keep it as small as you can. I've joked about saves where Mbappe joins Grimsby on the channel before, and that's the kind of thing that you see all the time on Reddit. Another very common mistake is mistaking regens for other players. I made a full video on this recently if you want to know exactly who they are, but regens are created when an original player retires and has the same potential, position and nationality as the player. But this can lead to some very annoying combinations. You might think you found Kevin De Bruyne's regen. It could be a centre attacking midfielder and a centre midfielder from Belgium with 90 potential. Or it could also be Hans Vanneken's regen, who's 80 potential and much worse than Kevin De Bruyne. If you want a better example of how to actually find a regen and identify who they are, Ronaldo's regen is probably one of the easiest. He'd be a Portuguese striker, he would have the same potential as Ronaldo, so probably 85 unless he gets downgraded before you watch this video, and they'd appear in either the Saudi Arabian League or in the free agents list. It's super easy to check who a regen is. First go into edit player and check their date of birth to find a player with the same nationality and birthday on Wikipedia. This is how we would identify if it was Vanneken or De Bruyne, or if it was Ronaldo or someone else that was just randomly generated. Just knowing this one super easy trick is going to make your career modes a lot less annoying if you think you have found the best regen on the game. I think objectives also have potential to be one of the most misunderstood and most mistake-ridden parts of the game. You see people, including myself, saying they've been fired for no reason, and usually it's because they've just ignored the board objectives. While I fully agree that often they don't make much sense, you do only have to complete about 50% of them these days to avoid being fired. That means that if you don't want to sign 4 players from Canada, just make sure you complete a different objective, like maybe signing a youth player in every position. It's a super simple thing to check before the season starts, so don't make the same mistake I did in my Athletic Bilbao save, where I got fired and had no way of returning to continue that series. However, EA has actually done some work on objectives, and this year there are a few different options. Strict is one of the most challenging things you can set because it bumps the expectations up by 1 notch. So relegation zone clubs will want to be mid-table. Mid-table clubs will want to finish in European football, and usually the best 5 or 6 teams in the Premier League or La Liga will all want to win the league that season. It can be unrealistic for someone like Bilbao to want to win La Liga, but if you want a really challenging save where you're always on the brink of being fired, seriously do consider giving strict expectations a go. Of course, if you want to totally avoid getting fired and making that mistake, you can just turn them off this year, which is fully understandable. Football Manager has a really good set of board objectives that make more sense and are more fun. You could be taken over by someone like a Thai owner and they will want you to sign players from Thailand. You can have a board who prefer playing long ball and get annoyed when you play short passing. Things like this could make the game more fun, but EA doesn't seem like they're going to add them anytime soon. So, apologies if this video seemed a little bit unstructured. It was a little bit all over the place with random tips being thrown in and parts of other videos being reused to help combine into this one video. I think it was the best way to cover a ton of different topics with a little bit of depth for all of them, and the chances are that if you're like me, you've made some of these mistakes in the past. If you can figure out a way to avoid them, then career mode has potential to be really fun. It's just a shame that so much of the responsibility for that is on our shoulders rather than EA just designing a really good game. But thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, so check out the video and the playlist on screen right now if you want to see some better content than this video, and I'll see you soon. Cheers and goodbye.